Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. The cyclocross season is almost here. The wait is finally over after some races in Germany this weekend. The real season, at least for the Belgians, kicks off with the Exact Cross in Kruijbeke. Issam, thank you for being here to take a look ahead at the upcoming cross season.
Yes, thank you for having me. And finally, we're going back into the sand, the mud. The off-road cyclocross is finally starting. So looking forward to this season, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm also looking forward to it. I'm pretty excited. The season, as said, kicks off, at least the Belgian season, with the Exact Cross in Kruijbeke this weekend. And some people might think, wait a minute, what is the Exact Cross? Well, it's basically what the ATS Cross Series was last year, but it got renamed. There's some new races in it as well, quite some classics actually. Loenhout, Mol and Zonnebeke come in, whilst Bredene departs because they're hosting the European Championships beach mountain bike. Leuven departs because the city of Leuven wanted to stop because due to the World Cup they couldn't get a good start field. Maldegem is stopping, they're becoming an unclassified cross, and Lokeren is organising the Belgian Championships, which also means that Sint-Niklaas is in this series again. First time that they were actually originally planned, but they were a substitute cross the last two seasons. So with the Belgian season finally starting, we'll see some of the big names in action. No Van der Poel, Pidcock or Wout van Aert yet, we'll come to that a bit later. But who do you expect to see at the front then in the first part of the season, Issam?
To be honest, last season we had Iserbyt very strong in the beginning of the season. It's a habit that he normally has every season in a way for the last couple of years. It seems like when everybody is still trying to peak towards the more important months, November, December, Iserbyt always finds something in the first couple of months, struggles then a little bit mid-season, and then tries to fight back at the end of the season. I guess that is something what I expect, at least, that Iserbyt's definitely going to be two ones to watch. He had a difficult preparation towards the season with the mountain bike campaign that failed, then not really seen in the road races, recovered, and then now said that he is supposedly in good shape and ready to attack this season. So I think that he is definitely, in my opinion, one of the main guys that we can trust to be standing there in good shape.
Definitely. I mean, Iserbyt, as you said, is always up there at the front of the season, and this year I expect no different from him. Yes, he had a bit of a tough summer, but I expect him to be there, especially now that Toon Aerts isn't here. Today we got the news that he has terminated his contract in mutual decision with the Trek Baloise Lions. There's still no information on the Toon Aerts doping case from the UCI. We've learned that his B sample is positive over the summer, but about this there has been no official UCI communication either, which means that he wouldn't have been able to do much for the team, and he's rumored to leave towards the Tormans Cross project at Wanty at the 1st of January if his name is cleared together with his brother Thijs. That remains to be seen what happens there, but he won't be there. So do you then think that it will be Iserbyt solely at the top, or do you maybe think that there will be some other riders, Issam, that can fight with Iserbyt?
But there will definitely be a couple of guys that will try to bring up the fight towards him, and it depends if Iserbyt is actually going to be in a shape that he had been in, for example, last year and the year before in the beginning of the season is going to be tough. But there are definitely opponents. I mean, Van Toornhout, we know, has a tendency to be a little bit better mid-season. I think that you can maybe look at a guy like Daan Soete, someone that has nothing to lose. The youngsters, obviously, some of them will start the season as well in Kruijbeke. I think that Van de Putte, for example, is someone that definitely wants to prove himself. We have seen he's able to, if he has a very good day, to race with the elites and to be able to race for top 5. So I think that he definitely is someone that can bring up the fight to Iserbyt. So I think there are definitely some names, that can fight with Iserbyt. But in my head, it's a big loss that we don't have Aerts, to be honest, because we know that Aerts is somebody that, is able to fight against Iserbyt and really race with nothing to lose. And we might miss that a little bit. I think one guy that I didn't mention right now is Laurens Sweeck, the one that made the transfer as well. I think that's something we should talk about.
I am quite confident that we will see other riders up there, but how much will Toon Aerts be missed? That's more of my question, Because let's face it, in the last 3 seasons, it's been a bit of a weird start to the season, even with Toon Aerts there. The 2019 season, he wasn't there at all. He got completely smacked by Iserbyt. And the 2 years after, well, it was basically a tough first weekend, then a period of being very strong, and then fading a bit. And that was the case in 2020 and last year as well, when he was very strong in Beringen, had 2 punctures, I think, and then was strong again, winning Gieten, and then fading towards the, well, of course, due to the crash into the season, before bouncing back later on. So the question is, what will we see from Toon Aerts? Well, nothing this year, at least that's what we expect, with the UCI taking forever to handle his case, but I don't know how much the difference will be, as the last couple of seasons he wasn't able to put his mark on the beginning of the season anyway. I am confident, however, that we will see riders up there. Sweeck, for instance, we know that the level is there to fight with Iserbyt. We know that he likes the faster courses in the beginning of the year. He, however, hasn't been able to show it consistently. But like in races like Hamme, he was there. Last year, of course, he became a dad. We don't know how that influenced him. But I think this new environment, being the clear leader of the team, not being involved with team tactics every time, will be beneficial to him. I expect to see him there, and it's a matter of finding consistency, in my opinion, to be able to fight for the wins in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, definitely is. I mean, with Sweeck, we know that if he has a very good day and he has a goal, then it's definitely something that he's able to reach a very good level. When there is some sand, Sweeck always is up there. A new team, so that means there's definitely some motivation coming up there. In my opinion, he's kind of the leader, the one with the most experience there at the men's category for them. So, with a new team, Crelan Friestads, I think he's definitely motivated to showcase the colors of that team and to try and be maybe eventually victorious with the team as well. So I think that is definitely a name to watch out for, but it depends if he has the same season he had last year. Last year wasn't, in my opinion, a great season. He struggled quite a lot most of the races, and the races where he had to be there was not really something to watch for. So that it is a question mark in a way, but I hope that maybe with the transfer, going to a different team, not being the team player anymore, and now he is kind of the leader there. That's gonna be a different Sweeck maybe. That's gonna create a different Sweeck, and hopefully that will ignite something in him that will create good results for him in this season.
Well, he's leaving Iserbyt and Michael van Toeren out as the 2 leaders of the Paulshausen Bingle team. Personally, I don't expect too much from Michael van Toeren out in the beginning of the season. For later on, yeah, of course, that's more for him. The bit harder courses, colder weather, but in the beginning of the season, not that much. Then we have Lars van der Haar, of course, the European champion, who had a very strong season last year. What do you expect from him throughout the entire season and also for the early part of the season?
Difficult to say. I mean, we have to congratulate him on the child that he had, the birth of his girlfriend, wife, I don't know, but that's definitely something that plays a role, that will take some energy out of you and some time as well. The preparation is definitely not going to be easier to perform, for trainings and stuff, because you're super focused on that as well. It's a super important aspect in life. So it's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be super focused in the beginning and in a very good shape in the beginning. I think it will take his toll a little bit in the beginning, and he will struggle maybe, and then hopefully he can continue the season he had last year, because I think last year was actually, for me personally, a surprise the way he rode in some of the races where he was like really good, to be honest. Very impressive. Tabor is one of the races that pops up right now. I think the Worlds was also very good. So if he's able to reach that level again, that would be super interesting to see what he's able to do in the faster races where he's able to use that punch that he has.
Yeah, for me, Lars van der Haar is a bit of a question mark. I don't know. Was it a one-time living up again towards the end of the season, or not towards the end, throughout the entire season? A one-time hit again of everything being right and then a slow decline towards the end of the career? Or did he finally settle into a zone where he's comfortable and being able of reaching that top level again, which we know is in him. It's a bit of a question mark. I am not too sure what to expect from him. I do know that Sven Nys expects some things from him again, just like last year. I would love to see him up there again, but if he will be able to do it, I think it will be difficult, especially once we come towards the latter part of the season when things just get more and more stacked. In the beginning of the year, he will definitely be there, but later on, when the big names come to cross as well, yeah, I think those names will dominate again. I mean, Van der Poel, he's indicated he's going to do between 10 and 15 races, starting towards end of November, beginning of December, focused towards the World Championships. We don't know about anything about Wout van Aert. Pidcock is a bit unclear. He says he maybe needs to skip cross season because he is, well, a bit tired. I think it was also a bit of a mental hit that he didn't win the mountain bike World Championships due to getting a bug the week before, having a mechanical in the race, also being stung by a bee during the European Championships just a week before. So we don't know for sure yet what they will be doing, but it looks at least that Van der Poel is coming. I do expect Van Aert and especially Pidcock as world champion to join the cross season at some point. Hermans also joining, well, not only joining the cross field, but also Alpecin Phoenix on the 1st of January. He is doing the Road World Championships, so continuing on the road for a while before he does do a couple of races. Melier and Vermeers, they have completely turned towards road instead of cross, so I don't expect them. But I do expect that once these riders come, especially Van der Poel, Pidcock and Van Aert, that it will once again be a difficult story for the likes of Sweeck, Aerts, Iserbyt, Michael van Toerenhout and Lars van der Haar.
Well, I personally think that if you look at the approach that Van der Poel is going to be having, and I think that Van Aert normally the fact that he had to do the Tour de France, then is also trying to have a peak for the World Championships, which suggests, in my opinion, that he's going to start a little bit later with the cyclocross season. The same way Van der Poel is probably going to do it, maybe a little more races. It definitely gives opportunities for the real cyclocrossers, or at least the ones that are going to do a full season. It will be easier, I guess, to fight for victory, and I think that will definitely change the racing in a way, because now you have the opportunity to race for victory instead of racing for third or second or fourth. It's definitely a huge difference. So I personally think that if you look at the guys like Iserbyt, like a Hermans, like a Sweeck, also the under 23 that are coming up, the new generation in a way, these guys will definitely have their chances this season. And we don't even know if, for example, a Van der Poel is going to be on a level that we have seen from him a couple of years ago, because last year we didn't have any confirmation of that level, and we didn't see it in the mountain bike as well. So we don't know what he will reach. Van Aert, we know that is going to be a problem if he's able to come back in the form that he was last year. And for Pidcock, it's the same question mark. We know that he's super good. He wants to show his colors as a world champion, but then he had that mental blow in the mountain bike, feels a little bit tired, has some difficulties to try to get back in a decent form, some irregularities also on the road. So it's going to be an interesting season. I personally think that this might be the season. I don't know how you think about that, but this might be the season for the younger guys, for Nys, for Viseur, for Stringer, the under 23. I think those guys, are super eager to get within the name. So what do you think about those under 23?
Well, I think they have a good opportunity of showing themselves again in the races early on in the season, and also beyond that. I think we have seen plenty of riders already getting a top 10. We have seen Hendricks getting a top 10s. We have seen Ronhaar getting an Elite World Cup podium. We've seen Nys getting a podium in the Sluitingscross Oostmalle. We've seen Kamp getting numerous top 10s. We've seen Viseur, Verstringen, Van der Putten, Michels, Mason. The list goes on. I think for these riders, it's about consistency. Can they consistently get their level up to being a top 10 rider with then having these highs of being able to fight for a podium and maybe a win? For a rider like Van der Putten, that is already closer than a rider like Ronhaar or a rider like Verstringen. But the talent is there. I think definitely in the beginning of the season they can show themselves. But I don't think that they will be able to consistently fight with the likes of Iserbyt, and definitely not with Van der Poel, Pidcock or Van Aert. In my opinion, those three riders are from a different planet. Yes, these riders coming through are very talented, but I don't think that they will be able to compete with Van der Poel, Pidcock or Van Aert in the near future. Maybe on the long term, when they start to decline or really start to reduce cross towards what Stibar did, only show up for the World Championships, maybe then they have a chance. But they are so talented and they are so technically gifted. Nice is, in my opinion, the only one who in terms of technique comes close to them. And Van der Poel, his talent is sublime. Then Pidcock, also top. Nice, also top. Van Aert, although we think he might be a bit off in terms of technique because Van der Poel is insane, his technique is also solid. I just don't see how it's possible for any of these young riders for now to compete with them. In the future, long future, as I said, who knows? In the early season, yeah, maybe. Van der Putte already raced in Germany. He took a win there and a second place against Meissen. Well, not that special yet, but it's also not bad. I don't know what to expect. It's hard, but as said, I think multiple of these riders will continue taking the steps that they set last year of getting in the top 10. And perhaps, if they have a very good day, they can do something like Iserbyt did a couple of years ago in one of these Ethias crosses where he surprised by fighting for the podium. I think that can happen. But out of those riders, if you need to ask me who to pick, it's a very tough question. Maybe if you are able to pick one or two names that first, like, I think these riders will do well, maybe I have enough time to consider and gather my thoughts on who I think will shine this season.
If I would bet, and I don't recommend it, but if I would bet on one or two guys from that pool of under 23, I would definitely say Pim Ronhaar. I think that Ronhaar, in my opinion, just that performance in Besançon for me it sticks with me for the whole season, to be honest. And he was really, really, really good there, and he showed almost signs of maturity of somebody that was already racing for way longer and already been way older as well. If he is able to, I think especially on the tougher parcours, but in general, I think that he is definitely going to be somebody that is going to be able to race probably the most consistent out of that group. I think that he is definitely able to race the most consistent out of that group. And then maybe Joran Viseur, after that World Championship, you don't know, that can definitely give you a super boost. You wear that jersey the whole summer as well when you train. That can be very special for him. Made a big transfer. Those are things that can really help for him. So I think those two definitely are on my list. But Nice, in my opinion, didn't have the best road season. In my opinion, I for me at least, I didn't see a lot from him on the road. There were some okay results, but it was it was not like last season where the hype was definitely real for him. Yeah, for me, it's I have to wait and see what he can do in the cyclocross. Maybe he can surprise me and be super good from the start. But that will be definitely for me a small question mark. And then the rest, yeah. I mean, a Kamp, we know that he's super strong as well. Verstringen, the same thing. So it's just going to be really fun to see what these guys are gonna do. If you would pick, like, out of those guys, someone, what would you pick then?
I think I will have to agree with you on Ronhaar. I saw an interview with Sven Nys saying that he was doing crazy watts on training. Of course, he was immediately to add a bit of coverage for himself and the rider to not put too much pressure on it. Race and training are different things. Definitely think he can do well. About Viseur, yeah, I'm not too sure, to be honest. I don't know. I think Viseur was good last year, but for me, I missed this wow factor. I've seen him do well, of course, claiming that title, but let's not forget that Verstringen was actually the stronger rider that race, but he protected the title of his teammate, friend, and compatriot Viseuren. Both now made the move to Alpecin, but they will be racing for the Eco Crelan team. I don't know. I feel like Verstringen needs one more year. And Viseuren, despite being very good, personally, he hasn't convinced me. Of course, he can prove me different this year. And, I mean, he got a top 10 at the end of the year in the Waasland Cross Sint-Niklaas, and he has shown himself with a top 10 in Gavere after claiming that world title. He has shown himself in the under-23 races. He has gotten a podium in Gullegem. He has been up there. But in the elite category, I haven't seen too much of him yet. I expect more from Niels van der Putten. I think he's a bit further in his development. He's also, I think, now becoming a first-year elite from the top of my head. I think that the consistency will be more with Van der Putten. I have seen him already get good results. 5th in Waterloo World Cup last year from the top of my head. I think he can do well. I think that maybe Van der Putten and Ronhaar will be the two names that we see consistently. Whereas behind, I am personally still convinced that Nijs is a very talented cyclocross rider, but hasn't been able to show it due to circumstances the past years. So Nijs. Also looking forward to that. This is also basically a do or die season for him, he said. He wants to fully commit to one more cross season, and if that disappoints, he will draw his conclusions of doing the road. He had a decent road season, but no World Championships or European Championships this year, so less hype. And then secondly, I'm really looking forward to the Dutch duo Hendricks and Kamp, because those two riders, in my opinion, can become consistent top 10 riders. So I think it will be interesting, as you said. I expect interesting battles, more in the lower end of the top 10, where we can see riders like Soete, Vincent Bastaans, but maybe also some of the riders who are becoming slightly older, Michael van Toerenhout, and, well, I think Jens Adams, these riders who are usually in the top 10. That will be a lot thicker pack there this year, with riders fighting for those positions. Well, that's the men's part covered as good as possible. Some interesting questions, many questions that remain to be answered this cross season. We'll see how disastrous our takes will be this year. Last year we had some disaster takes, also some good ones, but we will see. On to the women's side then. Lucinda Brandt starting her season next week, maybe in Beringen, maybe a week later. She's had a pretty decent road season. Last year she won the World Cup, she won the Super Prestige, she won the X2O trophy. But not the World Championships, and not the National Championships. Two races where Marianne Vos was stronger. We saw some great battles between these two riders last year. Brandt usually being the best in the other races. But when Vos was there, Vos was still a bit too good for Brandt. What do you think for this year? Let's start with Brandt. The European champion. What do you expect this year from her?
A bit of the same, eh? I think that she definitely will not lose that much performance over last year. She definitely improved her technique. We could see that. She's someone that wants to go all out in a race, and you love to see that. I think that there will not be much difference for her this season. She will not grow more, but I don't think that there will be a decline because of her road season, which was also very good. I can remember Tour de Suisse that I've watched a little bit, glimpse left and right, and she looked very, very strong there. So I think that Brandt is just going to be there again, and definitely the woman to beat over the season. And then it's going to be interesting to see how she can cope with probably the opponents that are going to be there. I think that Vos, if she's going to be there at a fast parkour, is definitely again going to be difficult to beat. Is going to be a year older, but that is definitely the one that she wants to beat as well, and definitely on a world championship that would be great revenge. And then she has to also look for the women that were under her last season, with the promises of the under 23 that are coming up as well, that are definitely showing promise results in preseason and in the summer. So I think that will definitely be something. But what do you think about Marianne Vos, to be honest? Because for the champion right now, is she able to defend that championship, and is she able to win some races this season?
Oh yeah, for sure. Last year I was doubting Vos a bit, but well, before I go too hard off on this, I'll have to talk in two words. It depends. I think we'll see Vos. And last year, Vos showed when she peaks for something, she clearly peaked towards those World Championships, that she is there. And the season before, apparently, it wasn't going as planned when we thought it was. We thought Vos was written off. Vos has been written off many times, one time by us. Well, that was one time too much because she immediately responded by becoming world champion. Now, we've seen it on the road again. I think she was fully peaking towards Paris-Roubaix this season, and that cost a bit of her hilly ability, the ability to do the hills in Tour of Flanders. But then she ultimately got COVID for Paris-Roubaix. Okay, fair enough. But she peaked towards the Tour de France Femme, and she didn't disappoint. Winning stages, wearing the leader's jersey, securing the green jersey. Wow. So, no, I think that's going to be fine. If she does want to peak towards those World Championships in her home country, which I think she will be there. Will she prolong her title? That's too early to tell. I think Brand will need to come up with a serious plan to drop Vos, because if it's a fast course, it's very hard to drop Vos. But yeah, I expect Vos that if she wants to be there, she will be there in good form, and good form Vos, even at this old age, will be good enough to fight for the title. I don't know if you think the same about that, but at least that's what I think. I think Vos is just the greatest of all time.
I definitely agree on the part that she's the greatest of all time. I mean, the stats speaks for themselves, and the way she's able to dominate races. You know, if you go with her into the last lap, there is no point actually to even try something, because you know in the sprint there is nothing you can do against her. So in that regard, I definitely agree, but I just feel that there is going to be a point. It must come that it's not going to be as dominant as, for example, it was last season for her in the races that suits her. So I definitely think that she will definitely showcase that she is still the best cyclocross rider in the world when it's her parcours. But I definitely think also that it's going to be more and more difficult, and she has to seriously peak for one race and one race only, and that's going to be the World Championships. And I think that we this season might actually see something like that she's like she did last season in a way. Not race that many races, take every race for granted like it's not really the most important thing. Pick your races. If it's a good circumstances and you're in a good position, then go for it. But if you're not, it doesn't really matter, because there's only one goal. That's the World Championships, and she might actually ride a season like that to try and peak for the Worlds, and that would be interesting to see if she then actually succeeds in it. But I personally feel that this might be, and I might be wrong, but this might be maybe one of the last seasons she will be able to win races in that fashion. She might be able to win races in the coming years, but I think that the decline have to start somewhere. I mean, we cannot be looking at her in her when she's 45 and still winning races and stuff. I think that would be wishful thinking. So I think that the decline will be there. But behind her, I think the under 23 that is coming up, and some question marks as well. I think, who do you want to go on?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Those under 23 riders, they are going to be up and rocking this cross season. We've already seen it last year when Pieterse and Van Empel were fighting for the win in Flamanville. But this year, I think that they will make another step and consistently fight for the win. And yes, they will be up there with Brandt and Vos. Pieterse had a pretty good mountain bike season. She was the only rider, I think, who was able to come close and even occasionally beat Lien Burquier. Shirin van Anrooij, fabulous road season. No other words. Winning youth classification in the Tour de France, up there all the time, best young rider in the Women's World Tour, starting her cross season a bit later because she's doing the Road World Championships, road and time trial. And then Van Empel has been a bit anonymous over the summer, is linked to Jumbo, hasn't had a great program due to the way that the Paul Sousa team is formed. But last year what we saw from these riders, it was fabulous. And will they all three be up there? Probably not. There will probably be one that has a bit of a tough season. But in all honesty, the talent is just insane. The technique, the punch is just fabulous. And we saw it last year. we've seen just step after step after step from these riders. So this year, if they can make another step, we will see, in my opinion, the most entertaining year or years where you have a shift of generation. The older generation and the younger generation are roughly as strong, and they are fighting against each other. So I expect some great entertaining battles. I predict a very, very tense, exciting, and action-packed women's season. With then, of course, also Vos coming in towards it later in the season. But I don't know. Do you think the same about these young riders, or do you maybe see more in someone like Alvarado, who had a tough year last year?
That's tough. That's tough because we know that like the ones that you just named, with the Van Anrooij, with the Pieterse, Van Empel, we know that they will be there. It's almost like we are almost certain that they will be there, which is actually not, but I expect them to be there. But for Alvarado, for example, and for Worst, those are like two that only 3 years ago, Alvarado 2020 world champion, Worst second, and in Oostende, Worst was second as well. And now the new generation already coming, the older generation is still there, and they are kind of at the background, and we don't know what's going to happen this season. It's definitely going to be difficult for them to mix themselves with the women that we just named and to be fighting for victory. It's going to be very tough because I think the field is probably going to be huge. There's so much talent coming up. It's almost like they're going to miss the boat and not be able to perform. So it's, for me, very hard to say. I think that Alvarado definitely had an explanation, had a clear reason why it didn't go her way, while they were kind of dodgy with the reasoning in the beginning, but in the end we got a clear clarification of the virus and, having difficulties to deal with that, then eventually was able to get back into some sort of a rhythm. But obviously when you didn't really train that well in the summer, it's going to be very tough. Worst, back problems, also very difficult. But, back problems are things that you're going to take with you for the rest of your career if you're not able to have some sort of an answer for it. So I don't know if that's going to be, if she's going to be able to cover that issue. And for Alvarado, it's just, she has to be able to prepare well, and then hopefully you're able with the preparation to reach a level that's going to be enough to beat Brandt and Vos and the others, the under 23s as well. It's going to be difficult. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know how you think about it, but I personally don't. I'm not so sure about those two.
Yeah, I don't write them off, especially Alvarado. As said, I have very, very high expectations and a lot of faith in the under 23 riders, Pieterse, Van Empel and Van Anrooij. But for Alvarado, as you said, there were reasons that her last season was somewhat disappointing. But don't forget, even in a somewhat disappointing season, she was fighting for the win in Baal, which was a technical course. She was fighting for a medal at the World Championships. Sure, there were some riders not there with COVID or other reasons, but she was there, and she ultimately lost due to a crash in the last lap. I think Alvarado, her chances will be there. She had a good summer. For Worst, I struggle to see it a bit more. She had 2 tough seasons. Then, of course, she showed that the potential and talent is there. And she also called in reasons of a bad summer. But for Worst, I have a bit more question marks. She is starting her season in the United States with her boyfriend Vincent Backstedt. They're going there, I think, for 3 weeks and then the 2 World Cups, so a total of 5 weeks. But yeah, those will definitely be some questions mark. What can the Dutch riders Alvarado and Worst do? I would want to add, normally I would have added Kastelein here as well. Somebody who we saw a couple of seasons as earlier fighting for the top 5s as well. But Kastelein has indicated that she thinks she has more potential on the road. And she's focusing more on the road to getting with the Planetur Pura team, which is a wise decision in my opinion. It's becoming packeder and packeder, and the list of riders who can achieve a top 10 in these races is getting longer and longer. Some more question marks. What do you think about Catablanca Vash, the winner of the Overijssel World Cup last year? What do you expect from her this season?
Since the transfer she made from SD Works, or to SD Works, basically we haven't seen a lot of promise. I can remember that when she made that move, we were like a professional team, a team that definitely is able to turn talent into superstars in a way. So we expected that she was definitely going to be able to deliver in a way, and I think you can clearly say now with almost a year in that transfer that she didn't. It was a poor season in my opinion, both on the road, in the cyclocross. I think mountain bike she did a couple of races, but also that was not really something to look back to and say that was really good. She struggled and she's still struggling, and this season has to be a season of changing it up and making sure that you're to fight back from the bad season in a way. It's gonna be difficult. It's a real question mark. I really, 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 really hope that she's going to be able to bounce back from what she had, the bad results and the bad races and missing the shape in a way. But it's gonna be difficult. I personally think that it's just going to be really tough, and there need to be big changes made somewhere to change it up. But maybe I'm a bit harsh. I don't know what you think about it, but I just I wouldn't say that it hurts me, but it's definitely something to that I don't really like to see in a way, because she was a young prospect. She's someone that is not from the Netherlands or Belgium. It's someone that is from a totally different country that we do not normally see in cyclocross. So you hope that it is going to be able to do well in cyclocross and in general, and it's just not really there at the moment.
Yeah, but you make it sound like there's almost no way back. Come on, it's a fairly bad road season and a somewhat bad end to her cross season. She had COVID during the World Championships. And then, okay, there was a disappointing road season, but let's not overdo it. Things can be turned around. We know the talent is there. We normally should assume that the good support is there at SD Works. Maybe there were reasons which we don't know about that the road season didn't work out. Maybe she decided to fully focus on the cross season this time. We do know what her plans are for the cross season. She's starting with some smaller races in the Czech Republic before starting the bigger races around the Tower World Cup. At least that's what was reported in some Hungarian media. Maybe the translation was a bit wrong, but that's what I understood. Who knows, maybe for her bike sponsor she will race in the USA, but we will wait and see on that. But things can be turned around, and yes, we should be a bit cautious in putting our expectations after such a road season, but it's definitely not already a done deal that it will be a bad season. Who knows? We can wait and see. I think that Lars Boom is a good trainer for her, and that he will definitely help in terms of experience, telling her about the lines to take. We already saw improvement on the technique last year. I think if that continues, maybe it's not the best season, but I don't think it will be a disaster either. And in all of this mix, we've still not even mentioned Denise Betsema. Mrs. Consistent, always up there, always on and around the podium. What do you expect from Betsema?
A bit of the same, to be honest. I mean, it's hard to put something... to put any expectations for Betsema. It's someone that we know that has difficulties to finish off races. She doesn't really have the tools in a last lap, so she has to do it from the beginning, hard pace, and make sure that she has a good gap in the beginning laps to then maintain that gap. I definitely think that there were some races last season that she was really looking good, so I expect a bit of the same. I think that she will be able to have her races where she goes away in lap 1 and we never see her back again. But it's definitely going to be a little bit more difficult right now for her to be able to do the same thing, because the competition is there, and it's definitely not going to be any easier. It's going to be tough for her, and I'm definitely looking forward to see if she can confirm to us that she is able to bring up the fight to the others. That will be definitely the main question of this season for Betsema for me.
Yeah, I can be short about what I expect for Betsema. Indeed, as you said, more of the same, but maybe for a bit of the lower places if Pieterse, Van Empel and or Van Anrooij can make the step up. And then it's a matter of not falling into the bigger pack behind. Last year we saw Persico being very strong on some of the faster courses. Persico also very strong road season. She's set to move towards the UAE team together with a large group of riders from Valkar, including Artzoufi. Then we have some other riders who we saw occasionally up there. Rochette on some of the harder courses. Honsinger also on some of the harder courses. Who knows what Backstedt and Schreiber can do. Both have been showing great potential. Kay and Ribeirol both made the move from the Star Casino team to 777 and Crelan respectively. I hope both can find some new impulses there and move towards the top 10 places again with these new impulses. There's so many riders around there. Manon Bakker, haven't mentioned her, was not great in Germany this weekend, but if she manages to find the legs of 2 seasons ago, she can also move up into those top 5 positions again. The field is so competitive also with the likes of Lechner, who occasionally still manages to get a top 10. The list just goes on and on. Aniek van Alphen, I can name 20 riders at least that are able to get a top 10. Katie Klaus, who is actually taking a sabbatical, so she is not there. I think it's maybe due to her not finding a team. But anyway, there are many riders. So, I don't know, out of those riders, maybe I expect the most of Persico, although we're not sure what she's going to do on the road or in the cross after such a good road season. Also, I don't know what moving to UAE means for the cross possibilities. We'll need to wait and see, but I think it will be super packed and it will be super interesting. And I think if you have a bad day or the course doesn't suit you, you can end 15th. But if you have a good day on a good course, all of a sudden you can be standing on the third step of the podium. And that, in my opinion, is what makes the women's category so fantastic to watch. Just the variety of riders fighting for these higher places. Because last year we also saw Foucounet or Lynn Burquier get top 10 results.
I am, for this season at least, and also last season I have to say, I'm leaning more towards having more interest for the women's category than the men's category. In my opinion, I think, in my honest opinion, I think that the women's category is a little bit more exciting at the moment than the men's category. I think that the men's category definitely has that push of the under 23 and the youth coming and taking over. But I think with the women's category, we kind of still seeking for someone to, we have a Brandt, but also Vos and the new ones that are coming up, and it doesn't end. It's definitely exciting. Both are very exciting to watch. I think this season is definitely going to be a good season. I'm looking forward to it. We have some new teams. I'm looking forward to see what Honsinger can do now, maybe with Backstedt as a teammate in a way, so that might help her. It's definitely going to be a very, very good season. I'm super looking forward to.
Yeah, you mentioned an interesting point there. Honsinger and Backstedt will both be crossing for EF Education. They also have Crystal Hermans on board from the Star Casino team previously. She's a very good team manager, has a great record in terms of things she's done in the sport. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what will happen there. And then personally, I'm also looking forward to Marie Schreiber, already victorious in the 2 German races this weekend, and I expect more from her as well this season, as she's been doing pretty good. It will be interesting to see what happens there. We said it many times, it's a bit a guess in the dark. Let's make some predictions and then discuss the calendar. Who do you think will win the World Cup, Issam, men and women?
Ooh, that's gonna be difficult. I think for the women's category, I'm gonna play it safe and say Lucinda Brandt. I mean, Mrs. Consistency, I guess that's the one that I would go for. I expect that she will be good on every parkour, and she will make a goal out of it to win that to win the World Cup. So that would be a safe bet. And for the men's category, that's difficult. I'm thinking of Iserbyt, but I don't know how he will be mid-season. I would still say I would lean towards Iserbyt. So it's actually quite boring, the predictions, but I would say Brandt and Iserbyt for the World Cup.
Yeah, I think for the men's side, I really can't look past Elie Iserbyt. I think he is just too good, especially in the beginning of the season. Sweeck, we know he doesn't like the travel, so we're not sure if he will go to the States. Van Toerenhout lacks the wow factor to take the wins. And Van der Haar, I just don't have enough confidence to take him. So I will say Iserbyt. On the women's side, I won't take the same one and Brandt. So I will say Pieterse there, the winner of the Under-23 World Cup last year. Then let's move on to the World Championships. The World Champions, who do you think, men's and women?
If Van Anrooij is going to do the elites, I would say Van Anrooij. Just based, and I will say why. I will say why as well. I personally think that she is going to be she's going to start a little bit later this season, so her peak is definitely going to be at the end of the season, in my opinion. And we don't know what the weather is going to be, so it's going to be very difficult to guess. But I think the power output that she has, and if it's going to be a tougher parkour, if it's going to be a bit rainy, she might actually be able to do that. But I don't know if she's going to do the Under-23 or elites. I think she's going to do elites. And if she does that, then I would lean towards that. If she's not, then I would say Pieterse.
Yeah, but what if Pieterse also does Under-23?
Then Brandt. Then we go to Brandt. Brandt to win the World Cup and the World Championships. Man, I'm boring. But yeah, that would then be my shout. If both are doing the Under-23, then it's going to be. But I don't know. Why would you do the Under-23 if you have a chance to win the elites? That's the thing.
I 100% agree, but I don't think it's an unlikely scenario where at least one of the three does the Under-23 World Championships. But on the other hand, if they are all three consistently fighting for wins, then there is, in my opinion, no other option than to draw the conclusion you don't belong in the Under-23 category anymore. However, I don't think Van Anrooij will win on a course like Hogerheide. It hardly becomes muddy, and if it does, there's still plenty of other sections where Fem Van Empel will have the edge. I think the course is perfect for Fem Van Empel, and if we assume she is moving to Jumbo, I think it will be either Fem Van Empel or Marianne Vos taking the world title there, depending on the categories they race in. And on the men's side, I'm going to be the most boring guy here, Mathieu van der Poel, and I expect you to be joining me in that as well.
I didn't give my men's. I will go with Van der Poel as well. I expect that is his goal, despite the fact that he's not openly saying that. You know, there is no way that Van der Poel is not thinking about Hogerheide. He wants to win there for sure. It's a bit of a home race for him, so if that would be a safe bet, Van der Poel.
Then to finish our predictions, the surprise of the season, men's and women's category.
I don't really have a surprise. I don't think the Under-23 is going to be a surprise. So I have to look a little bit further. Well, let's say Alvarado is going to be the surprise. He's going to bounce back from that season, and that will be maybe seen as a surprise, in my opinion, that she's going to bounce back. So maybe she will be the surprise.
I think in the women's category, Marie Schreiber will be the surprise. The Luxembourg rider who's been on our radar for quite some time is going to do pretty well. For the rest, I look forward to Amandie Muller from France, first-year junior who already ended 7th in Germany. And also on my radar is the Czech generation led by Kristina Zemanova, who has been doing pretty well as well. And for the men's side, while we already went over it extensively, I come back to the same names, Ron Haar and Van de Putte.
I would agree on that with the men's. Definitely Ron Haar and Van de Putte as well is going to be a name to remember.
Then to finish off the podcast, let's talk about the calendar for a bit. There's been quite some changes to it, and also to the classifications. Let's start with the World Cup, which was last year criticized for having too many races. They have been reducing their number of rounds from 16 to 14. The races that are gone are Namur, which is hosting the European Championships, Hogerheide, which is hosting the World Championships, Flamanville in France, which is hosting a World Cup, or at least wants to host a World Cup once every 2 years. Then we have Iowa, who have been furious. They could not afford the fee. They were rumored to be organizing once every 2 years as well. However, they lost their date on the calendar entirely because they had been assigned the same date as now the World Cup in Fayetteville by the US Cross Organizations meeting. but the UCI, without knowledge of the other American races, assigned that same date to the World Cup in Fayetteville, which makes no sense that Iowa will be hosted on the same day. They are out, and finally Kokzijde is out as well. They have been moved to the X2O series. What does that mean? Which races are new? Benidorm in Spain. There is one round which is to be confirmed, but everything pointed towards London, but it's gone awfully quiet around that. Then new are Beekse Bergen, and finally Antwerp is in there after being cancelled for 2 editions again. What are your thoughts on the World Cup calendar, Issam?
Some usual suspects, some new names. I think overall a decent calendar. I don't know if the amount that we are right now with 14, if that was something because, they just didn't find any races that would fit within the requirements of a World Cup, or that it was basically their aim to have 14 races. That's something that's for me a little bit unclear, but to be honest, I think that is quite a good World Cup. It's international in a way. Hopefully London will go ahead. Looking forward to how Benidorm will be, to be honest. Finally a Spanish race again on the calendar. Has been a while. The American races in the beginning of the season are becoming a bit of a tradition, so I'm getting more and more used to that. That's amazing, to be honest. Beekse Bergen is going to be a new one in the Netherlands, which is, for me, I have no idea if that is going to be something that's going to stay for longer than 1 year, but we will have to wait and see. And overall, no big complaints. I think that this is it's overall a solid season, a solid calendar, and hopefully the next couple of years will also be a calendar with some international racing and some familiar races as well.
I think it's a good step towards internationalization to have a cross in the UK, have a cross in Spain. We already have a race in Italy on the calendar in Val di Sol. France is staying on with Besançon, and then we have the Czech Republic with Tabor. However, I'm not too amused by how they've planned these things together. They've put Tabor right after the American World Cups. We already know that there's big complaints about traveling to the USA. This year, no different. I can guarantee you that there will be headlines of Mette Penningen complaining about the costs and complaining about how the team of Sven Nys has everything paid for by Trek. And Nys will say, oh, it's our duty. I can already tell you that's going to happen. But then, to come back to Europe and immediately have another, for most riders, flyaway race, Tabor, just puts it in a very easy position to say, well, you know what, I'm not going to go to Tabor. I'm going to take a rest here. So I'm not a fan of that. I think Beekse Bergen, it is a race with some history because there have been national championships there. I think that was not a choice out of luxury because it's basically a race in the Netherlands very close to Belgium. Later on in the season, I am a bit surprised again that London and Val di Sol are put back to back, which means one of the two is very likely to be skipped. In my opinion, Flanders Classic remains a Belgian company. Last year they got criticized in Belgium because they were killing classics like Asper-Gavre, which was put in the end of the season, barely had any spectators. Zonhoven, which was early in the season and wasn't visited too great, needed to be saved by Flanders Classics rather than being organized by Golazzo, as was supposed to happen. I think they felt the pressure from the Belgian race organizers. They know that races at the bottom of the calendar are falling. I already named Bredene, Leuven. Well, next year it will only be more and more with more races being cramped in. So I think they felt the pressure and they felt the need to do something. That's why Zonhoven is moved to January, where they can be hopefully hosting a cross with a packed kuil. I think that's the reason why they put Tabor so early again. So if people skip, they don't need to skip Belgian races. I do think that there's somewhat of a conflict of interest there. It is what it is. It's not a terrible calendar, but I do have my questions about the position of the international races once again, because these races in Belgium and the 3 ones in the Netherlands, which are basically all within 20 minutes drive from the border, I feel like those very much have the priority, and that is a bit unfortunate. But to end on a positive, Benidorm, Very nice addition. Hopefully this year, no skipping of that race, because most riders are on training camp there anyway. And then I will still end on a bit of a negative with Besançon as final round. I fear that one will be skipped if there's nothing on the line anymore for most riders, as they can race in Hamme the day before and then stay close to Hogerheide and avoid a long travel. But we will see. Hopefully I will be proven wrong. Well, I already mentioned Koksijde is out of the World Cup. They have been moved into the X2O trophy, and that's basically the only change there. The X2O trophy welcomes Koksijde, with Loenhout moving to the Exact Cross series. And then comes to a part which I am really angry about, and that's the Super Prestige. The Super Prestige has been reduced to 7 races. They have lost Boom, which is being replaced by Middelkerke, which organized the Belgian Championships last year. But then Gieten. They scrapped Gieten because it was, quote, too far away, unquote. I'm sorry, how can you scrap a race that for being too far away when it's a 2-hour drive at most from the north of Belgium? 2.5 hours max. What is this? I don't understand.
And a race with a big history as well. Huh? It's definitely a race that, if from the moment that I knew of the existence of the Super Prestige, was up there already. The way everything went on in that case of Gieten, and the reasonings and the back and forth after that decision as well, made me feel that there was a lot of irritation between the two parties, the organizers of Gieten and the embodiment of the Super Prestige. It's difficult to say what took place there. I don't think that that's the right reasoning to say that it's too far, because, like you say, I mean, Gieten is definitely, you have to drive for a little bit, but it's definitely not definitely not a Tabor or something. So
come on, yeah. It's 2.5 hours. It's nothing. Maybe 3 or 3.5, or be it 4 at max. Come on, you're a pro cyclist. It's your job. It can't be too far away. Do you hear all these French riders complaining that the center of the sport in Belgium is too far away for them, or do they show up every week? If you want to be an international sport, you need to have a race like Gieten. And in my opinion, this is speculation. I have no news or any insight on this, but I think the Super Prestige just messed up. They wanted to have 8 races, but they ended up with 7 because they were faced with a dilemma. They were going to have Middelkerke in it. Middelkerke hosted the Belgian Championships last year. 1 race needed to go. So they thought the easy way is just ditching the Dutch race, which is far away, which they completely played. They kept telling them they were going to come with a deal. Yeah, such a good race. And then all of a sudden they terminated it. The race is gone. They didn't have any chance of potentially joining the World Cup if they could get the fee together instead of, for instance, a new race like Beekse Bergen. They couldn't get together the money or funding for a national race. So they are gone. Will they ever come back? Hard to tell. So in my opinion, I think the Super Prestige was hoping to fill that 8th race with Boom on the Tomorrowland grounds. But Boom, for some reason, which we don't know, is not organizing a cross this year. And that eventually results in the Super Prestige being the loser of the situation they created themselves by ditching Gieten.
That's a fair assessment, I guess. I mean, look, something went on behind the screens, which we don't know. I don't know what it is. They definitely tried to play it hard, I guess, and they eventually lost out, only have 7 races now. I don't think that was their goal in the end. I think that if they could turn back time, that they would probably try to keep Gieten in now. But it is what it is. Gieten is out. They're also not going to organize it as a standalone cross. Doesn't make a lot of sense, to be honest, as well, because it's just really going to be tough to try to find a place. The amount of money that you can lose in such a event is just too big of a risk. And yeah, it's really a shame, because it's definitely a race that I remember of, like, from when I was very young. So it's quite painful, to be honest, to see it go. And hopefully they can get themselves in again next season, but that's going to be very difficult. And you have to think about what classification you're going to get yourself in.
Well, we will only see. I've calmed down a bit. we will see what happens. Super Prestige starting a bit late. Season finally starting this weekend, though, in Kruijbeke. We'll be making a podcast about that. Later on, we also have crosses in Beringen and Molenbeek before the season really starts in the USA with the US World Cups. We'll also be giving a bit of coverage to the US CX series, which is live on Eurosport/GCN. Keep an eye out on our Instagram, where you can also find a link to our newly created Discord server. Issam, thank you for being here and making this pretty long podcast ahead of the upcoming season.
Yes, thank you for having me. I hope that people enjoy it, and hopefully our takes are not going to be as ridiculous at the end of the season as they are now. We have to wait and see. Thank you, and looking forward to this season.
Thanks again very much, and you will be sticking with me and Issam for the beginning of the season. We'll be hopefully having some guests on as well, and then in November Twan comes back. So thanks everyone for listening. We will be back this weekend when the season is underway. Goodbye.